Hello and welcome to this video, which is a follow-up. I'm still studying composing pictures by Don Graham, who was the teacher at Walt Disney Studios in the 1940s. So I continued reading chapter 1. I'm not done with the chapter. It's one of the things you'll notice about this book, if you start reading it, is just how densely packed each chapter is, and moving very quickly through a lot of information and things that need to be sort of he's kind of doing some vocabulary early on, defining terms and things, which if you're not familiar with the terms already, then it's kind of a lot to take on. But I took some notes on this. I read to page, I think like 12. And so in the just a little recap of the previous video, I talked about how this book focuses on principles rather than sort of details and technique. It's not really technique heavy, although everything in it applies to your technique, so it's kind of weird. And that we're stepping into a two-dimensional reality, and it's a different world. It has its own rules and weird, idiosyncratic ways of being in this world. And in this video, I wrote down, we're kind of moving on to the subject and the surface. And these are his kind of the two words he uses to help us understand what are the parts of a picture, which might seem simple, but if I asked you what are the parts of a picture, you might say, you might start pointing out particular materials, and he would consider those as part of the surface. So I kind of split it. I wrote the subject and the surface. Under the subject, I wrote pattern. And under surface, I wrote material. And this is cool because it kind of helps us think about the two, like I said, the two parts, or the two different concepts you're dealing with when you have a picture, which is one, he calls it the, he says, the subject matter is first recorded in the artist's mind, then translated into picture terms. And for picture terms, he uses he says graphics, lines, points, areas of tone, and any way you change the surface to produce something we can visibly tell, some visible alteration of the surface. So, the subject and the surface are kind of the two parts that we have to wrap our minds around in getting to understand why we're making the picture, how we're going to make it, and kind of separating the two. So, we can think of the subject and the pattern that we're trying to produce. So let's say we wanted to draw an image of a fairy or something. Well, we could draw it in pen and ink. We could draw it in watercolor. We could draw it on a digital, on an iPad. We could sculpt it. We could we could carve it out of wood or something. So there's all these different means. Those are means, which are how we accomplish the bringing into being of the subject. But the subject itself is almost like a kind of depending on how your mind works. For some people, it's a very vivid image in their mind. Like Milt Kahl, he could basically see the image so powerfully in his imagination that he was able to basically look at a blank piece of paper and then overlay his imagination on it, and it was almost like tracing for him. For other people, they have a vague idea or a blurry outline in their imagination. For other people, they don't see much at all, and they just start with lines, and then they have a basic idea of how to how to draw something, so they kind of just start with shapes and forms, and then they cobble together, and it's a messier process. So it's important that we understand, I think, that there's two parts to picture making. One is a command of the materials. We have to be able to pick the materials we want to use and then get really good at using them to the point where we know how they'll behave in our hand. We know how the watercolor is going to dry. We know how it's going to move. We know all these particular material things about how we're manipulating the surface. But then there's the subject, which is the pattern itself that we're trying to create, and we need to know about that as well, which is why studying anatomy, studying the basic forms is important, because we're not just trying to get good at manipulating material, we're also trying to get good at manipulating our imagination and our ability to compose images mentally and then translate them into graphic terms. So I kind of will wrap that up with basically I have a note here that the subject matter is first recorded in the artist's mind, then translated into picture terms. The subject matter is first recorded in the artist's mind, then translated into picture terms. This is important. It's kind of because I think the reason it's important is because it's a very difficult hurdle to our practice. And it's what causes us frustration is when maybe we have a great idea, but we can't put it into words, or we can't put it into graphic terms in this case. So understanding that that's what's going on and that there's a process in learning how to do this, I think can help when we're starting out, not to get too disheartened by the fact that we are learning to translate our mental images into graphic elements on the paper. And it's not something that it's not something that we have to we have to be deliberate. We have to be conscious of this hurdle. Otherwise we keep smacking into it and not realizing what's going on. Okay, the other thing that there's another concept I wrote down, which is illustrative, abstract, non-representational. And these are how Don Graham explains the different, the three different, you might call them styles or modes of drawing. And he uses examples. He uses a Jackson Pollock example for a non-representational image where there's just splatters of paint all over the place, and it doesn't refer to any object or any subject in nature. It doesn't have a landscape. It doesn't have contours of some form. It's just the splatter of paint built up over time. As Jackson Pollock was making it, he was splattering paint down and then responding to what he put down by putting more and more and layering on. And eventually he was building up some sort of feeling. And the image communicates an energy and a feeling to us, but it doesn't communicate a subject or an object or something. So that's non-representational. And then we have abstract. And abstract, he would kind of use examples where, Picasso or something, where it's sort of abstract means that it's removed out of its context. So I did some drawings here, and you can see how the illustrative here on the left is an apple, but it's rendered with its lighting and a cast shadow, and that it's on a surface. So you see it has sort of a background here because it has a ground that it's on. It's it could be a table. And then this is abstracted. And so it's a simplification. We simplify the shapes, and we also remove some of the material. We're pulling it out of its context. We still see it as an apple, but now we're seeing it as an abstracted apple, which kind of makes it more universal. That's what abstractions do, is they kind of move from particulars to universal, more and more universal. And then we have this non-representational at the right, which doesn't show any apple at all. It's just a bunch of lines and chaos, but it does have some sort of feeling here. And so I wrote beneath illustrative is sensation, and it's because our senses are really detailed. And then abstract is an idea. And this is kind of less detailed because it's simplified to hold in our memory. And then non-representational is just kind of a feeling or a mood. And it doesn't call to mind a noun. And with storytelling, we're really working with nouns, verbs, adjectives. And one image can produce that. Like so in my illustration and the abstract drawing, both of those show the noun of an apple. Noun is a person, place, or thing. So it shows us a named object, an apple. The non-representational there's no object to name. There's nothing we point at and say it has a name. We might say the lines are aggressive. We might say the lines are making me feel anger or something, or maybe they're making me feel sad, or the lines can have an adjective, or paint splots, or blotches of paint, or just areas of color or tone or gradients. They can have adjectives, right? They can have a mood to them. But the combination, I think, of these abstract, illustrative, and non-representational, I think we use a combination of all those in picture making to create not only what we want to tell the audience, but also how we want them to feel about what we told them. So that's where I'm at for now. I'm going to continue reading. I hope you will join me. This is a very fun book, although it is very detailed, and it has a lot of pictures. Every page has illustrations. So that's one of the things I love about this book, is that every concept is tied to some sort of historical or Don Graham's own, he either uses some sort of historical image or he draws a very simple diagram. And sometimes he does both, where he draws diagrams of the historical artifacts. And so it's just really powerful because it's connecting all the words and the language of graphic design, graphic image creation, but it's giving you pictures and diagrams to explain those words. Whereas if you read some books like the Practice and Science of Drawing by Harold Speed, it's a lot of walls of text, and so that you get a lot of concepts written in language, but you don't see a lot of illustrations or examples. But this book is just packed, filled to the brim with examples from all different cultures and times and places in history. So you get this very, very rich visual library, as well as all the language to help get a handle on how to use that, how to look at these pictures and extract more from them, extract the principles that are embedded in these images. So I'll continue reading and keep you updated on my notes and how I'm studying, and I hope you get this. Like I said in the first video, this book, there is a internet copy. The Internet Archives has Composing Pictures by Don Graham for free, and so you can get a digital copy of it. The physical copies are harder to come by. They're a little expensive, but I read the digital copy on my phone, and it blew my mind and changed a lot of how I thought about composing pictures. But I'm really happy to have the physical copy just for I'm going through it again, so it's a little different. And but I hope, however you get a copy, start reading and enjoy learning the kind of the deep foundations of picture making that once you get a hold of, you can kind of, for the rest of your life, for the rest of your life, you can know what it's like to enter the two-dimensional world that the artist is a master of. And that's what this book offers. And so whether it makes you have to put in the practice to draw and whatever, to apply these ideas. But so I hope you enjoyed this studying with me, and I hope you'll do more studying on your own, and put in the comments anything that stood out to you in this first chapter, or any of the ideas I talked about, or if there's any questions you have clarifying anything, I can do that in the comments. Other than that, thank you for watching, and keep drawing.